Yo, hit me up in the comments. Where you from? What time is it? And are you really ready for this? Where you guys tuning in from tonight? East Coast, West Coast, maybe someone out of the country. Either way, tonight's story ain't for the faint of heart. This next story was sent in by a woman named Maria, a long-haul truck driver from Texas. She said this happened back in 2020. When she took a delivery route she still refuses to drive to this day. Maria had been driving trucks for almost 10 years. She loved the solitude, the open roads, the feeling of freedom. But one route changed that forever. She was hauling produce from Austin to a small town near the New Mexico border. Normally she'd take the main interstate, but that night her GPS showed a shortcut, a narrow 2-lane road cutting straight through the desert. The GPS called it County Road 197, though when she tried to zoom in, the map froze. She figured it would save her almost 2 hours. It was close to midnight when she turned off the highway. The air was dry, the sky cloudless. Just miles of flat, empty desert. At first everything seemed fine, but after 20 minutes she realized her radio had gone silent. No static, no signal. Her phone had dropped to 0 bars too. The only sound was the low hum of her engine, and the wind blowing across the sand. Then out of nowhere she passed a small gas station. An old flickering sign read Rudy's Fuel and Dine. It looked ancient, with rusted pumps and peeling paint, but the lights were on. A man sat behind the counter staring at her truck as she drove by. She kept going. 10 minutes later the same gas station appeared again. Same sign, same broken lights, same man. Maria thought she must have made a wrong turn, but the road was straight, no intersections, no exits, no way she could have looked back. She slowed down, pulled over, and checked her GPS. The screen was frozen, showing her truck spinning in place. That's when her CB radio crackled to life. A man's voice whispered, "You shouldn't stop here." Maria froze. She grabbed the mic and said, "Who is this?" No response, just static, then silence. Trying to stay calm, she put the truck in drive and kept moving. The gas station appeared again, but this time, it looked different. The lights were dimmer, and the man behind the counter was now standing outside, facing the road. His skin looked pale and waxy, like he hadn't moved in days. His eyes followed her truck, empty and cold. Maria pressed the pedal and sped off, heart racing. She drove for nearly an hour, but the scenery never changed. Desert on both sides. No towns, no signs, no turns. When she checked her rearview mirror, the gas station sign was still glowing faintly, even though she should have been miles past it. Finally her fuel light came on. She was running out of options. She stopped the truck, stepped out into the cold air, and looked around. The road behind her seemed to fade into darkness like it wasn't even there anymore. Then she heard footsteps, gravel crunching slow and steady. Someone was walking toward her from behind the truck. She spun around and shined her flashlight, but no one was there. Then she saw it, boot prints in the dirt beside her tire, leading toward the passenger door, and then stopping. She jumped back into the cab, locked the doors, and tried to start the engine. Nothing. The key turned, but the truck wouldn't start. In the distance, she saw a faint glow, the gas station sign again. But this time, it wasn't far away. It was right ahead of her. The attendant was standing in the doorway, waving slowly. Maria grabbed her phone, which suddenly had signal again, and called her dispatcher. The line connected, but all she heard was heavy breathing, and a voice that said, "You shouldn't have stopped the first time." Then the call dropped. She screamed, slammed her foot on the pedal, and the truck finally roared to life. She sped forward, the lights of the gas station disappearing behind her, the road twisting violently in ways it hadn't before. When she finally saw the glow of highway lights ahead, she burst into tears. She pulled onto the main road, parked, and sat there shaking for 20 minutes before calling the police. When state troopers arrived, they checked her route log and told her there was no such thing as County Road 197 in that area. The only old gas station nearby, Rudy's, had been abandoned since 1993 after the owner and his son vanished. Maria still drives trucks today, but sometimes on empty desert nights, she glances in her mirror and swears she can see that same flickering sign glowing faintly in the dark, always just far enough away to make her wonder if it's really gone. Story title: The Guy Outside My Window. This first story was sent in by a viewer named Dylan, who used to live in a small apartment in Chicago back in his college days. He said this happened in late 2018, and to this day, he still can't sleep with his blinds open. Dylan was renting this tiny one-bedroom on the 5th floor of some old brick building. Nothing special, just cheap and close to campus. The place had one big window that faced a narrow alley. Barely any sunlight came through, so he usually kept the curtains closed. One Thursday night, around 2:45 a.m., Dylan was finishing up an essay when he heard 3 soft knocks on the glass. Not loud, just a slow, creepy little tap. Tap, tap. At first, he figured it was maybe a bird or something brushing the window, but there weren't any trees nearby. When he looked up, the glass was just dark, and all he could see was his own reflection from the computer screen. He got up, pulled the curtain a little, nothing, just the empty alley below, a flickering orange streetlight barely lighting up the walls. He laughed it off, grabbed a drink, and went back to typing. About an hour later, tap, 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 same rhythm, same exact spot. This time, he froze. The knock sounded way too slow, too intentional. He turned off his monitor to kill the reflection, and his heart just stopped. There was a face, right up against the glass. He couldn't make out details, just this pale shape, the eyes wide open, staring straight at him. He tripped over his chair trying to back away, and by the time he looked again, the face was gone. He called building security, but they'd brushed it off, said there's no way anyone could reach that window from outside. It's 5 floors up, and there's no ledge or fire escape. The next night, nothing happened. He convinced himself he was tired, maybe seeing things. But when he woke up the next morning, there were smudge marks on the outside of the glass. 2 long streaks that looked like handprints sliding down. He showed the landlord, but the guy just shrugged. Probably kids throwing stuff, he said. That weekend, Dylan had a couple friends over for pizza and a movie. He told them about it, and they laughed, said he was tripping, dared him to leave the curtains open that night. So he did, around 2:30 a.m. While his roommate was knocked out on the couch, Dylan was up editing a video project. That's when his roommate suddenly sat up and whispered, "Dude, did you hear that? Tap, tap, tap." This time, it came from the bedroom window. They just stared at each other, too freaked out to move. The knocking got faster. Tap, 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 tap. The roommate grabbed his phone, turned on the flashlight, and pointed it toward the window. There was a shadow pressed flat against the glass. A man's face, pale, sunken, eyes completely white. And then he smiled and mouthed something they couldn't hear. The roommate screamed. Dylan yanked the curtains shut so hard the rod snapped right off the wall. By the time they dared to look again, the figure was gone. They called the cops. The officers checked the alley, no footprints, no ladder, nothing. One even leaned out the window and said, "There's no way anyone could have been up here." Dylan couldn't stay another night. He crashed at a friend's place for a few days. When he finally came back to pack his stuff, there was a note taped to the inside of the window. It was written in messy black marker, the letters all shaky and smudged. It said, "You left the door unlocked." He still doesn't know how it got there. Security checked the building cameras. Nobody had entered or left. But when they pulled the alley footage, there was this weird glitch at exactly 2:47 a.m. every night, lasting 15 seconds. Dylan moved up the next morning. The landlord rented the place again a few months later, but nobody ever lasted more than a week. Even now, 5 years later, Dylan says sometimes he still wakes up in the middle of the night, always around to 45 and swears he can hear that same slow tap, tap, tap on his window. Most folks think yard sales are harmless, cheap junk, old memories, nothing worth remembering. But some things don't forget where they came from, and some things just wait to be played again. Jake was a vinyl junkie, one of those guys who lived for thrift stores, flea markets, and yard sales that smelled like old cardboard and regret. He was out driving through County Road 12 one hot Saturday afternoon when he spotted a hand-painted sign, Yard Sale Final Day. He hit the brakes. The house looked half-abandoned, shutters crooked, mailbox rusted. A woman in her 60s sat out front, cigarette burning between her fingers. Jake scanned the table's old records, VHS tapes, tools, until he saw a milk crate labeled cassettes $1 each. Most were blank, but one stood out, a black tape with a piece of masking tape on it, handwritten, "Play me alone." He smirked. "Okay, creep vibes. I'll bite." He handed the woman $1. She didn't even look up, just said, "If you hear your own voice, don't stop it." He laughed it off, thinking it was some kind of prank, tossed the tape in his backpack and drove off. That night, curiosity at heart, he dug out his old Walkman, popped in the tape, and pressed play. A woman's voice came through, soft, almost whispering. "Hi, Jake." He froze. No one knew his name. The voice giggled. "Do you remember the house?" Then came the sound of a door creaking, footsteps, and under it, this faint humming, the same rhythm as his ceiling fan. He ripped off his headphones, heart racing. Maybe someone edited his name in. Maybe it was coincidence. He hit stop, but when he looked down, the Walkman was still running. The tape was still spinning. The voice came through the tiny speaker now. "Don't walk away, Jake." He yanked the batteries out, but the tape didn't stop. The counter on the Walkman kept moving. Then knock, knock, knock. 3 sharp knocks from his front door. He grabbed a knife and crept toward the entryway. Nobody there, but his porch light was flickering like crazy. When he turned back toward the living room, the Walkman was sitting on the coffee table, open, the tape halfway out, still whispering, "You left me in the basement, Jake." His stomach dropped. He didn't have a basement, not in this house. He ran to the kitchen, breathing hard, and that's when he saw a door he'd never noticed before, behind the fridge. Old, wooden, bolted shut. The whispering grew louder, like the tape was bleeding into the walls. "Come down, Jake. I've been waiting." He unbolted the door, flashlight shaking, dust, concrete steps, a smell like wet dirt, and something dead. The voice echoed now, bouncing off the walls. Almost there. At the bottom was a chair, and sitting on the chair another Walkman. Tape already loaded. Label side B. He pressed play. His own voice came through, terrified, shaking. "If you find this, don't listen. It's not a recording. It's her." The light went out. Cops found Jake's car the next morning, still parked outside his house. Engine cold. Inside, everything looked normal except for one thing. On the table was that same cassette. Only this time, the label had changed. It didn't say "Play Me Alone" anymore. It said, "Play Me Again."